so we're good. Alrighty, welcome back to another Wisco Fanatics Wednesday. Jake and I are back, and we only have 4 Brewer games to go through this week, so not a ton to go through. But as usual, we're going to do our Power Pair and Underrated Performer and get those kicked off. And 4 games to talk about, so we'll get into it.
Welcome to another live episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we discuss the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, Badgers football, and basketball from an optimistic perspective. Wisco Fanatics is brought to you by Cardboard Legacy, Wisconsin's most complete sports card shop. Buy, sell, grade, and consign all at their location in Oshkosh.
Alrighty, so like I just said, only 4 games of Brewer games to go through this week. Next week we'll have a bunch. We'll have, 7 games next week? Just with the Brewers being in Atlanta. They play tonight instead of this afternoon, which kind of just works out. And then, of course, next Wednesday is going to be a day game, so we'll have that one before next Wednesday's show. So it is what it is, but here we are. So, Jake, we have 4 games. Give me your underrated performer and power pair from the last 4 games.
Okay, so I gave a challenge to myself to talk like a 12-year-old today. So as the kids say, time to lock in. Time to lock in, Tyler. So for my first guy, I told everybody at work, I was like, I'm going to do it, dude. I was having a discussion. That's a story for another day. Anyways, my first guy, I have nobody else other than Jackson Churio. We're just going to be trading him back and forth, it seems like, for the rest of the season. Yep. Congratulations to Tyler for calling that he is the new Christian Yelich playing left field. They do not just slot him in the 3-hole, though. They kind of move him around the lineup where he's needed. Today, batting leadoff. So when you watch the game later today, he is going to be batting leadoff. But as of this moment right now, for the last week of games that we have to cover, he was 9 of 25, 3 runs, a double, 2 RBIs, 6 strikeouts, and 1 stolen base. That's a 360 average, a 360 on base percentage, a 400 slug, and a 760 OPS. On top of that, I went back to July 1st. I did this for everybody on my power pair list. Since July 1st, he's had at least 1 hit in 20 of 25 games. He's had 2 hits in 12 of those 20 games where he had a hit. And that is including his career high, his first ever and only 3 career hit game that he had against Minnesota. So 12 of 25 games, he's had at least 2 hits. The man is on fire right now, giving us defense, giving us power. So good job by Jackson. Just keep ascending, young man. Make that contract look puny. For my pitcher, I picked Elvis Paguero, a guy who's had some ups and downs this year, but I thought he was very good this last week. 2 1/3 inning pitched, 1 hit, 0 walks, and 1 K. Since July 1st, he's given up 6 earned runs over 11 1/3 innings pitched, 9 hits in that time frame as well. So you're going to see the 6 earned runs over 11 1/3, and you're going to be like, oh my God. In 13 of those games, he's pitched in 13 games. In 10 of those 13 games, 0 earned runs. So he had a game where he gave up 3 runs, and then 2 other game where he gave up 2 and game where he gave up 1. So really, that's where the 6 earned runs come from. And he's given up no earned runs in his last 4 outings. So he's on a pretty good streak right now. So good job, Elvis. Keep it up. And then for my underrated performer, I went with Rhys Hoskins. 6 of 22, 4 runs, 2 doubles, a home run, 2 RBIs, and 4 strikeouts, doing a much better job not striking out and putting the ball in play. It's a 273 average, a 273 on-base percentage, a 500 slug, and a 723 OPS. I was really worried going through all those 7s, 2s, and 3s. But he is on a current 11-game hit streak, and he's been on base at least one time in 19 of the last 26 games. So he's doing a really good job getting on base, even if he doesn't get a hit. Right now, he's doing a great job getting a hit, 11 straight games, obviously. But just getting on base in general, we've had this discussion a million times. That's a good thing. He's hitting with power. That translates throughout the whole team, and the team is starting to hit with a little bit more power. So let's get it.
All right, I like those picks. For my power position player, I went with Garrett Mitchell. He's 4 for 11 over the last 4 games. Arguably the Brewers' hottest hitter right now between him and Churio. Those were the 2 low-hanging fruits for the Brewers. That's a 364 batting average. Also drew a walk. Garrett Mitchell's plate discipline has been pristine this season since he came back from his injury. He drove in 2 runs, scored 3 himself, and he is on a 9-game on base streak. Didn't have any hits last night, but he was on base twice. And then my power pitcher, I went with Colin Ray from last night. He threw 7 innings, no runs against the Braves, gave up 5 hits and a walk, tied his career high with 9 strikeouts. Colin Ray now has 19 consecutive innings pitched on the road, scoreless.
Yes, sir.
19 consecutive scoreless road innings for Colin Ray, so he is dominating on the road, which is good news because then you can set him up in the playoffs and feel comfortable with him on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And my underrated performer, I went with Tobias Myers. Now, I told Jake that I have an angle on this, why I wanted to use him as my underrated performer. So he pitched the 5 innings against Washington, gave up 1 earned run, 4 hits, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. The reason I wanted to put him as an underrated performer is not only because his performance was underrated, but I think it's possible that he might be underrated a little bit by his manager. So that's a conversation when we get to that Nationals game that Tobias Myers started. I want to have a conversation about Tobias Myers. So put a pin in that, and we'll get to it when we get to that game for the National Series.
Yeah.
So let's jump into game 1 from the Nationals. Now, this was the debut of Frankie Montas. So, Jake, what's up to you from game 1 against the Nationals?
Well, we got to start with Frankie Montas, right? He made his debut, like you said, for the Brewers, 89 pitches in his debut, 9 swings and misses. He also became the 17th starting pitcher this year for the Brewers. That's most in the major leagues right now. And they tied a franchise record that was set by the Seattle Pilots in 1969. So I saw 1969 and I was like, yeah, that's going in the notebook. I thought he was really good. If you break up his stats like this, 5 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 0 walks, and 5 Ks, you'll take that every single time out, honestly.
Yep.
I mean, the 9 hits is a little high, but he's got to be figuring some stuff out going to a new team. They got to figure some stuff out with him too. So this is really just a feel-up process the first couple starts, and then after 3 or 4 starts, I'll say 3. After 3 starts, they're going to be like, okay, he could do this, he could do this, he could do this. Let's put him in this situation. This is the best situation for him to succeed. So I thought he was really good, honestly. His 4-seamer hit 99.1 miles per hour, which ties his season high, and his 4 miles per hour over his season average of 95.2. And there's a lot of talk about him being a splitter pitcher. His splitter was his 3rd most used pitch on this day. So he was using the 4-seamer more, which seems to be a theme with a lot of the pitchers on the Brewers right now. But I thought that was good. He had the RPMs up there.
Can I jump in on Montas quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
You touched on some of the things that I also wanted to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
He threw 19 pitches over 97 miles an hour.
Yep.
That's my question was, and this is a rhetorical question. Do you think he's excited to go from a 4th-place team to a 1st-place team?
Yep.
I think there's some adrenaline that can play into that. And I'm glad you brought up the pitch usage, because I also wrote down that his sinker was 8% above his season average, and his slider was about 7% below his season average. So let me also throw into the Brewers, getting familiar with Montas is also getting his chemistry with what Contreras and or Sanchez or Haas are going to call for him behind the plate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one other thing that I wanted to throw out there with Frankie Montas as he gets acclimated with the Brewers. But I will say I did appreciate this from Bill Schroeder. I was like, I couldn't think of his actual name. I kept just wanting to say Rock. Bill Schroeder was in the booth, and he was talking about when Montas actually came to the Brewers. He said he felt like he'd been here for a while because the clubhouse is just welcoming like that. And it's like, those are the advantages that we have. Jake and I have beat this horse to death that was already dead, and we will continue to do so because the Brewers' biggest advantage as a small market team is the people.
100%. Absolutely.
All right, back to you.
So that's all great stuff. I think we covered Frankie Montas, and I think he was good, and I'm excited to see him out next time as well. The bullpen
he had a better debut than Eric Fetty had with the Cardinals. Just throw that out there.
100%. I'm pretty sure the Cardinals got jumped by the Pirates, if I'm not wrong. Unless I didn't check if the Pirates lost last night. But I know that the Pirates this morning when I woke up, or last night.
The Pirates, I believe, did lose to the Padres, but
yeah, because they were facing Dylan Cease, right?
Yeah, the Cardinals are a game ahead of the Pirates.
Okay. Well, either or, I'm not really worried about either. To be
Yeah,
but it is
they
what
are
it is.
6 and 7 games behind the Brewers, so
Yeah,
we should be looking up, not down.
exactly. And just wanted to point this out about the bullpen as we get back into this. The bullpen did a tremendous job, giving up 1 walk and 1 hit. They had 2 Ks. That's Piamps, Milner, Koenig, and Peguero. They all combined for this. 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 2 Ks. That's tremendous. No earned runs. So great job by them. Wanted to point out that the Brewers were hitting the ball hard and often. 5 of the top 6 exit velocities in this ball game came from the Milwaukee Brewers. All except number 1. The number 1 top exit velocity was Luis Garcia. After that is Contreras, Hoskins. Adames has 4 and 5, and Churio has number 6. So the Brewers were hitting the ball hard, and Contreras mashed a home run. 108 miles an hour. It went 439 feet. That was his first home run since July 14th. Also versus the Nationals.
Oh, nice.
So good job by him. Brewers were 5 of 17 with runners in scoring position. And the biggest thing since we've really started talking about this stuff is the 17. I always look at the number on the right. I'm like, dude, we had opportunities to score runs. That is a positive thing.
Yes.
If they don't, if they have the 5, if they have the 8, the 6, like that's not good. That means we weren't getting on base.
It's one of those things where, like, if you think of just everything else as a percentage, just like you do with batting average and on-base percentage and slugging, if you think of, like run scoring opportunities, if you only score on 40% of your opportunities and you only have 5 base runners, like the best you can hope for is to score 2 runs.
Yep.
But if you get 17 runners on base or 20 runners on base, then you're talking about having the opportunity to score 8 or so runs. So increasing the opportunities increases the scoring. It's just those numbers correlate.
That's just kind of how math works.
That is kind of how math works.
So, yeah, just thought the offense did a tremendous job. Everybody had good at bats. I mean, Hoskins, Perkins, Contreras, Turang, Mitchell, and Churio are the people who chipped in with the RBIs. But really, the congratulations goes to everybody with the 17 at bats with runners in scoring position. So great job by them. Bullpen, great job. Montes, get the hits down a little bit. Other than that, if you put your finger over that and you blank that out, again, tremendous start for him. So I was happy after this one.
I mean, you look at it, he pitched the 5+ innings because he gave up 2 singles when he started the 6th. If you just got 5 innings pitched and 7 hits out of them, like obviously you'd still want the hits to come down a little bit, but it would look a little bit better.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the offense, and I just wrote contributions from everyone. 8 out of the 10 players got hits, and the 2 that didn't were Joey Ortiz and Jake Bauers, and both of those 2 drew 2 walks.
Love that.
So what I said last Wednesday was stacking traffic was what I was looking for the Brewers to do. They did that in this game. They had a few 1-2-3 innings, but the other 4, they had 4 1-2-3 innings. The other 5 innings, they had multiple guys on base in all of them.
Cool.
So then the other thing I wanted to talk about was Jason Lane, because he seems to be one of the only guys that ever gets talked about when he does something wrong, which is not how it should be, but here we are. Jason Lane made a great send of Jake Bauers in the top of the 2nd, and Bauers made an even better slide to dive wide and get his hand on the back of the plate. That's fantastic. And then there was a Garrett Mitchell double, and then Sal was right on Rhys Hoskins' heels, which was funny. Hoskins had to freeze to make sure the ball was going to get down when he dove for it. So there was that. And then the last thing was Jason Lane sent William Contreras on a sac fly. So they had a fly out, and Jason Lane sent Contreras. He got thrown out by James Wood, who has played 27 games at the major league level. Only played 4 games in left field in the minor leagues. That is absolutely a guy you want to test.
You got to test it.
And if we're talking about being consistently aggressive, like, you don't just be aggressive when you know it's going to work and not be aggressive when you don't know if it's going to work. Tim, what's up? Because, like, I've said this a whole bunch of times when we talked about the Pat Murphy philosophy of what this team has done this year. If everybody knew that being aggressive worked 100% of the time, everybody would be aggressive.
100%.
There's give and take there. You have to take. Sometimes it's not going to work out for you. But when you're talking about testing somebody who's as inexperienced in left field as James Wood was coming into this series, you got to test it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get the two ugly games out of the way. We get to start and end on a high note with the Brewers this week. So we got to get the two ugly ones in the middle out of the way.
Yeah. So you start this one, and Aaron Savali got beat up in 4 innings, but really it was really just the first inning. They gave up 4 runs and 4 hits in the first inning, and the Brewers, as a team, only had 1 hit through 4 innings. So they had 4 runs and 4 hits in the first inning. We only had 1 hit through 4 innings, and that was kind of the tail of the game. I wrote down here, late rally comes up short, and that's really what it was. It's not that the Brewers weren't hitting the ball hard, because they did have 8 hard hit balls according to Baseball Savant in their metrics. But other than that, I mean, only 8 at bats, runners in scoring position. That all came really in the 7th through 9th innings, in my opinion. Hoskins had a home run in this one, so it's nice that he's continuing the power streak. We're going to need that absolutely for the rest of the season. Sanchez, Hoskins, obviously with his home run, and Chourio had RBIs in this one. Chourio also scored off a wild pitch, and what else did I write? Oh, and then the Brewers had 3 of the top 5 exit velocities in this one. Gary Sanchez hit a baseball 110.5 miles per hour. That's a very hard hit ball.
Yep.
Jackson Chourio hit one 108.2. That was a single. Gary Sanchez's hit was a single. And William Contreras had a double in this one. That was 104.8 off the bat. So Brewers hitting the ball hard. Washington, on their end, they had 10 hard hit balls, and they were hitting home runs, and they were kind of teeing off on us in the first couple innings. And the Brewers, like they always do, put up a fight for 9 innings, and it just came up a little bit short. And it is what it is, man. You just move on to the next one. Nick Mears, though, continues to be really good. Wanted to give him a shout out, put a star next to him. I was like, he continues to be good. 1 inning pitch, 0 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, 1 K. I mean, what more can you ask from him, right?
Yeah. So I just want to throw this out there on the not giving up thing. The Brewers were able to score 2 inherited runs off of Kyle Finnegan, the Nationals closer. He is one of very few established players that the Nationals still have. Their closer, Kyle Finnegan, he was actually a target of mine 2 years ago for the Brewers to trade for. So I give him respect. Scoring 2 runs off of him was still a positive in my book for this game. Now, I just mentioned, I talked about in the first game, stacking traffic.
Mm-hmm.
The Brewers, in both innings that they had multiple runners in this game, scored runs. The other run was a Rhys Hoskins solo home run. They only had 2 1-2-3 innings, but 5 of those runnings, they had only 1 base runner. So, yes, they had base runners on in 7 of the 9 innings, but 5 of them, they only had 1. That's where I'm talking. You have to stack traffic.
Mm-hmm.
I would take a couple extra 1-2-3 innings in exchange for having 3 or 4 guys on base in 1 inning, because then again, we're talking about stacking traffic and making it easier to score runs.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I want to talk about Savali. He gave up 5. 4 of them came after the first 2 outs in the first inning. The first run was off of a single. That was a good pitch. It was a curveball on the bottom away corner from the batter. The 2-run double, all of the pitches in that at-bat were on the outer edge. Had him down 0-2 with the first 2 pitches. And this is an experience thing. I'm not saying it to disparage him, but Chourio just did not make a good play on the ball. I think with some more experience, I think Chourio is going to run back to the spot instead of trying to jog to the spot while keeping an eye on the ball. He's going to run to the spot and then find the ball again. That's just an experience thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. And then after that, the 4th run was a ball that actually got too much of the plate. So there's that. The home run in the bottom of the 3rd was not a bad at-bat for Savali either. Just had him right at the bottom, but Luis Garcia is super hot.
Yeah.
I will look that up. Brandon asked, what is Savali's FIP with the Brewers? I will find out right now. It is 5.69. His ERA is 5.40. But we're talking 25 innings with the Brewers. So, I mean, I don't know. It's not good, but like we talked about Savali a couple times already now. He's really just – I don't think he's had multiple like bad games. The worst game that he had was his first one with the Dodgers. I don't think this one was this bad because I think he made some good pitches. I think he made some bad pitches in this game as well, but I don't think it's as bad as people like crying that we need to DFA Savali or whatever. Like, just I think we need to just be a little patient with him. Other thing, I just want to throw this out there. Brandon said I was curious if it was better or not. It's pretty close to the same. His misses are bad. Otherwise, he's a decent pitcher. Yeah, I mean, not mad at that take at all. I'm willing to be patient with him. Like, there's still plenty of time in the season. Like I said, he's kind of inconsistent so far with the Brewers, but he's pitched 5 times. Okay. Last thing I want to say is on the Nationals, they could have scored more, I think. Because in the bottom of the 4th inning, they have first and second with nobody out. They sacrificed bunted, and it killed their inning. After that, they went sack bunt and then ground out. They would have been better off grounding out twice, and they might have still got them a run. Just throwing that out there. Okay, let's go to Game 3, the finale from Sunday. What stood out to you from that game?
So, a couple things stood out to me in this one. So we're going to have a discussion about Tobias Myers, so I'm going to leave him alone. But Hobie Milner in this one was really just unlucky. Lot of very light contact, in my opinion, against Hobie. Some flare shots to opposite field because people are just like, listen, I just got to put the bat out there because this guy throws it funky and his pitches are moving and he's just getting unlucky, and that's kind of been Hobie's year this year. I mean, obviously he's had times where he gets hit hard, but what pitcher does not get hit hard during an entire 162-game season? So, in my opinion, I think Hobie Milner was just a little bit unlucky. Payamps, Peguero, and Williams look good. Contreras and Sanchez got us on the board, but in my opinion, I literally wrote this down and I underlined it and circled it. The Brewers literally just pressed replay from the day before. That's what they did. The Nationals were scoring. They weren't scoring as much as they were in bunches in the day before. But now I think we need to have a discussion here about Jackson Chourio before we have a discussion about Tobias Myers, because this is a game that the Brewers are down 4-0, and it would not have been a 4-0 game if Jackson Chourio played a ball a little bit differently. But hearing the noise about how he doesn't give effort and he should have dove, I think was something that got to him. Oh, well, I have here that they had 4 of the top 5 top exit velocities. So I did not write down all 15 or 14 hits over 95 miles an hour.
Sheesh, that's a lot.
Yeah, Gary Sanchez had 2 of them. One was a double play in the first inning. He had 111 miles an hour. Yeah, you're getting doubled up on that. His home run was also 111 miles an hour. Garrett Mitchell had a single for 105, and Contreras had a force out at 104.5. So, yeah, the Brewers would – it wasn't like the Brewers played bad. They were hitting the ball hard. It was right at people, dude.
The 3 outs that they had in the 9th inning were 95-2, 96-9, and 96-7. Contreras, the ground out that he had, God, that's so tough. Looking at the 8th inning, the single that Mitchell had an 830 batting average. Chourio had a single. Contreras had a ground out that had a 560 expected batting average. That one was at 104.5. Gary Sanchez obviously hit the home run. That was 111.4.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, they were hitting the ball hard. Adonis had a 98.9 flyout. Andre Monasterio, his double was 101.7. Blake Perkins had a 100.1 ground out. The 3rd inning, Chourio grounded into a double play on a 95.5 mile an hour exit velocity that had a 910 batting average, or expected batting average. Garrett Mitchell had a single, 105.5. Joey Ortiz had a line out at 98.2. Like Brandon, there's definitely something to that. the Gary Sanchez ground into double play was 111.6.
Mm-hmm. They were
They were hitting it hard.
Like I said, they literally hit replay, hit the ball hard, and get unlucky. So almost like Hobie Miller, the offense was getting a little bit unlucky. And you know what?
Have we had that conversation before? I think we've had that conversation before where we've talked about, like, I would rather be hitting the ball hard consistently than, like, getting bloop singles consistently.
Well, now obviously we have hindsight of 2020, but I will say hitting the ball
we
hard.
Expand the sample size.
Yes, hitting the ball hard translates, and the offense obviously exploded yesterday for 10 runs. We're going to cover that one in a sec, but just hit the ball hard, get people on base, and stay. Don't walk people if you're a pitcher. And honestly, you're going to be a pretty good ball club. Look at the Brewers this year.
Totally fair. Okay, so let's have the conversation about Chourio defensively.
Okay,
let's start with that. People earlier in the season wanted Chourio go, 100%, full send. Don't leave anything back. Don't play anything safe. And they were saying that he wasn't hustling. And in this game, this is why sometimes it's better to play it safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the thing that I'm going to come back to is that you and I don't fault effort, but I want to get your thoughts on that play before I say what I believe the solution is.
So, in my opinion, you know, like he was playing it earlier in the year. Now, there are times when you should dive.
Yep.
Let's call that what it is, right? Because that's true.
Yep.
But this play in particular, when you're in a game that's winnable, you're down. I believe they're down 1-0 at that point, right?
This game at that point, this was in the 6th inning.
Because 3 runs scored on that, right? And James Wood got a triple.
Yep. So yes, that was 1-0.
So you're in a 1-0 ball game, and I believe there was 1 out.
There was 1 out.
1 out. So you let that ball drop in front of you. You pick it up, and if they send it to home, you throw it to home, and you try to get a guy out at the home plate, obviously. And you know what? You may hold it to 1 run and get an extra out in that, and then it's only 2-0 instead of 4-0.
I thought that even if he had played it safe, I still think that 2 runs would have scored. But then you're talking about 3-0, and the Brewers were scoring 3 runs in the top of the 8th.
Yeah. So I would have played it safe if I was him, but I understand him trying to dive for it. I mean, dude, when you're as on fire as him at the plate, you almost feel unbeatable. Like you can do anything, you can do no wrong. This was kind of like a human moment for him. Like, okay, well, I can't do everything, even though I feel like I can, and I'm 20 years old, and my confidence is skyrocketing right now.
Yeah.
So just another learning opportunity for him.
Yep,
and
exactly.
For all those people that were saying that, oh, he was no effort and all this stuff, if I would have saw a single person say, oh my God, why would you die for that? I think I would have lost it.
Yeah. Totally love the idea of Jackson Chourio playing with confidence. I said this really early in the season that I think when he got to the point that he's at now where he's playing really well, I think Jackson Chourio is going to go from playing with confidence to playing with swagger.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to where he realizes how good he is. Like that we saw earlier in the season where Willie Peralta, I just did what you used to do. Willie Adames and Freddie Peralta were pulling him aside and saying, you're here for a reason. You were paid for a reason before you even stepped foot in the major leagues. You are a 20-year-old in Major League Baseball for a reason. When he realizes, oh shit, I'm here for a reason because I'm really, really good. That's when he's going to go from confidence to swagger, and I think that's when he's going to take it to another level even.
Oh, yeah.
So, saying this now, Jackson Chourio's got another level than what he's already brought in the last 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
And he's probably got another level beyond that because he's not even in his prime yet. Okay, so there's that. Now, this is what I believe the solution is for Jackson Chourio missing that dive attempt. So, going forward, down the line, play it safe. In the gap, full send. And the reason I say that is because if you're diving in the gap, you know the center fielder is going to be there to back you up. So there's that. That's what I'm thinking. If you're on the line, you have to play it safe. You have to keep the ball in front of you because once the ball bounces past you, it's going to roll forever. But if you dive for a ball in the gap and it gets past you, your center fielder is going to be there to back you up.
Yep. They'll always.
So Wes said incoming beer commercials. I don't think we have that kind of pull yet. But Wes, if you invite all of your friends, maybe some point we can get a beer commercial and we'll have somebody sponsoring us.
I would love to do a beer commercial.
Brandon said Baseball Savant has him as a positive, alt above average every category except route to the ball. I'll take that all day because you can work on perfecting your routes. And that is absolutely, absolutely perfectly said. Looking at it that way, that's the learning experiences that we've talked about with Jackson Chourio. Like we just talked about the game before this, where I talked about he's going to run to the spot and then find the ball instead of jogging to the spot while keeping sight of the ball. That's part of that route thing. We've talked about some of the stadiums that they've played in when he gets more experience in some of those stadiums and stuff like that. Jackson Chourio is already like an elite defender. When he gets more experience in all of the various ballparks, he's going to be like one of the best outfielders in baseball defensively. And we're already believing the same thing offensively. So Jackson Chourio, 2027 MVP, here we come.
It's happening.
So yes, Brandon, he's already a good defender and he has a room to improve. So the sky's the limit for Jackson Chourio. Right now, we are in the learning stage. He's 20 years old. Plenty of time to learn, and he's already good. Okay. Offensively, Andre Monasterio was on base twice. He had a double and a walk. Jackson Chourio was leading off. He had 2 hits. And Garrett Mitchell, batting third against a lefty, also had 2 hits. So seeing Garrett Mitchell getting at-bats and getting starts versus lefties is encouraging. I think more of that is going to be continuing to happen. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about with this game was Tobias Myers. He gave up a home run in the first inning. Like we've talked about with a guy like Colin Ray, you can limit traffic. You can keep the home run impact down. So Tobias Myers did that. Obviously, you don't want to give up any runs, but giving up a 2-out solo home run is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Tobias Myers also got 2 inning double plays and was pulled after 5 innings pitched and only 64 pitches. I know the Brewers were off Monday, so they had an off day so they could, Pat Murphy was feeling like he could use the entire bullpen, but they also pulled him before he was going to face the lineup for a third time. I think with how short the starting pitching has been, when you have the opportunity to let a guy go deeper in a game, you need to let the guy go deeper in the game.
I agree with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with an extra day of rest. I mean, we've been hearing all year long about how many games and how the bullpen has been overused, right? And we have a couple guys out right now. I mean, Hudson and McGill are 2 very important pieces to the bullpen that are out right now. So if you can get an extra day's rest for these guys, get them an extra day's rest because when we get into the playoffs, starters don't go very long, and there's no secret that we don't have an A+ starting rotation. So if these guys go 3 innings or 4 innings, we're going to have to use our bullpen for 5 innings. And we have plans to go deep into the playoffs. I don't care what anybody says. That clubhouse doesn't give a shit what Facebook.
You don't plan to make the playoffs. I mean, you do in the beginning of the year, but once you get towards the end of the year, you're like, okay.
Well, they plan to go deep into the playoffs. So if they plan to go deep with this starting rotation, the bullpen's going to have to be used, and it's going to have to be tremendous. So they should have just let them go, honestly. You never know what can happen after that, right?
Well, we've seen it too. I know I've brought this up where I talk about where he kind of runs into a little bit of traffic in that 70 to 75 pitch range for Tobias Myers. And then he's worked through the traffic that he's gotten himself into, and he's earned himself an extra inning, even if it's only 6 innings. Yeah. But if you let Tobias Myers pitch the 6th inning and he finishes even if it takes him 16 pitches and he finishes 6 innings at 80 pitches, that is a lot easier to understand and digest than 5 innings pitched and only 64 pitches.
Yeah. I agree.
Brandon's talking about last night's game, so we can go to that. We can go to the first night of the Braves series. And Brandon said, same scenario last night. Colin Ray had 50 or 60 pitches through 5. I don't remember if I had it written down exactly how many he was at. I don't. 50 to 60 pitches through 5 innings. Curious if they're limiting Myers' innings. I feel like it might have just been this game dependent because we've seen him go 8 innings twice. So I don't know how limited they need to go with Tobias Myers, but I think the bullpen off day the next day on Monday and not wanting Myers to face the lineup for a third time, which is not like we're playing the Dodgers here or playing the Nationals.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's a time where you can let anybody go through the lineup in extra time, even though a guy like Luis Garcia had a great weekend. And CJ Abrams is a really good player that we like. So that's where I threw that in there with my underrated performer. I think maybe Tobias Myers is being a little underrated by Pat Murphy, but he also could have Chris Hook in his ear or James Henderson saying like, hey, we don't want him to face this guy a third time. And Pat Murphy takes that advice.
Yeah.
I get that Pat Murphy has the final say, but if Chris Hook and Jim Henderson are giving me advice, I'm probably going to at least listen to what they have to say.
Yeah. Yep. I think those are people to listen to.
Yeah, definitely smart guys they got in the bullpen or in the dugout there. Okay, yeah. So now as we were going through and talking to Colin Ray, we can talk about last night's game. What stood out to you from last night?
Oh, boy. Willie Adames was on one last night, let me tell you.
Man.
4 RBIs for Willie, 2 home runs for Willie. Just absolutely hitting the ball like crazy. 2 of his 4 RBIs were with 2 outs. Contreras also added 4 RBIs. 3 of his 4 RBIs were with 2 outs, so the Brewers had 5 2-out RBIs. Nice. Terang and Ortiz also had RBIs, and I got to tell you, I wrote down on the page, I said the offense popped the clutch, baby, and that's exactly what they did. They went in. They were racing last night. They weren't just hitting the ball hard. They were hitting the ball far. They had the top 4 distances.
Yes. Michael said he was told Willie is terrible on Facebook.
You were.
Brewers Facebook is something.
It is yeah. It never mind. I'm not.
It's something. Just leave it
never
at that.
Mind. Never mind. I'm going to continue reading what's on my page in front of me because I was going to say something mean. Trade the bump. I agree, Michael. Wrote down swings and misses because Colin Ray was really good, and I knew you had him for your power pair. So I also wrote down swings and misses. 10 swings and misses for Colin Ray.
Love that.
Yeah, me too. Joe Ross also had 4, and I got to tell you, he had the one swing and miss where literally he threw a slider that was so good. Who the hell was it that swung at it?
Was it Olsen?
I think it was Olsen. I think you're right. He swung at it, and it looked like it hit his bat, but it broke so much inside that it hit off of his knee. And they thought that he made contact, and I was like, man, that's the new double doink right there. Just insane stuff. Going back to the Brewers offense real quick, the Brewers scored in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 8th inning. They also had the bases loaded in the 9th when they were facing a position player, and they were all swinging like they were in the home run derby. Nobody was trying to just make contact. They could have scored in the 9th inning if they really wanted to. Like, let's be honest about this. I mean, Garrett Mitchell ripped one. That was the last out for the Brewers on offense, and it was right at Soler, who had a tough day, by the way. Soler was getting beat up over there. He had a sliding catch, I believe, in like the 5th or 6th inning. The 1st inning on the triple from Contreras, he ran into the wall and was down for a few seconds. It was like, dude, he had a rough go of it last night.
He's definitely an offensive player.
He's definitely an offensive player. But talking about Contreras triple, that would have been a home run in 14 to 30 ballparks.
Sal Frelick drew a walk in the 9th, Brian, and that was Sal Frelick.
Yeah, he walked in the 9th, and then he hit somebody as well that loaded the bases.
Joey Ortiz got hit.
Yep, that's who it was. So to the top distances, Willie had the top 3 distances of the night last night. It was his 2 home runs, and then the single that wasn't, and then it was. Remember the single? Where the guy caught it and he ran into the wall? That single, by the way, was a home run in 3 ballparks.
Huh.
LA, and the Cubs.
Huh. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So with last night, we got Colin Ray. Now, what I literally wrote in my notes was, what can we say about him that we, as in you and I at Wisco Fanatics, haven't already said?
Dude, love me some Colin Ray.
We have discussed him as a guy who gives you a chance to win every single time he starts, every single time he pitches. And I believe I called him last week the Brewers' most consistent starting pitcher.
Yep.
He's not going to be a Cy Young guy, even though he's getting up in like the top 10 and 15 of a lot of important stats in the National League. So he's not going to be a Cy Young guy. But if there was a first team all underrated players, Colin Ray would be on it.
100%.
So he faced two under the minimum, two over the minimum. Two under the minimum would be wild. Two over the minimum through 6 innings. He got through the 7th on 92 pitches. That's a great, great outing from Colin Ray. Brandon brought up number 10 in National League in ERA if he had enough innings. And I think he'll get there. Just a couple more outings like this one, and to do it against the Braves is wild.
In Atlanta.
Yeah, in Atlanta too. So 4 of the 6 pitches that he throws, had above average velocity. 5 of the 6 had above average spin. 4 of his 6 pitches had above average vertical break, and 5 of his 6 pitches had above average horizontal break. So Colin Ray, he had his stuff going last night. Myers would be 5, I think, too. Yeah, he got called up kind of late and was up and down a little bit before he kind of stuck in the rotation. Robert Kosser's Tommy John injury doesn't help either, but Myers might sneak his way into the Rookie of the Year conversation. I mean, he's not going to be top 5 in it, but he'll be, he'll get votes for 8th place. Okay, so looking at this, Colin Ray, he kept his 4-seam fastball down. His sinker was effective, and he was locked in. That's why I bring up the velocity, the spin, the horizontal, and the vertical break. Colin Ray had his best stuff last night, and he pitched fantastic. That is what Colin Ray, last night is the ceiling of what he can do. Now, he gave up some hits, not a ton, but he also tied his career high with 9 strikeouts. Colin Ray, like I said, what can we say that we haven't already said about him? Because we've given him his flowers. I think it's time for fans to do the same. I think fans that watch our show do that, but time for everybody to do it.
I agree.
So, next thing. The Brewers jumped on the Braves the way that the Nationals jumped on the Brewers on Savali on Saturday. Now, why I bring this up is the Brewers adjusted to Bryce Elder. They saw him last Tuesday, and they had to see him again last night. He had good rotation, had good velocity. The triple that he gave up to William Contreras was a good pitch. The home run that he gave to Willy Adames was a meatball, so Willy Adames put that in the seats. And then the second home run that he gave up to Willy Adames, that was painted on the corner. So there's 2 things that can be true here. 1, William Contreras and Willy Adames are just good hitters. Or 2, the Brewers made great adjustments from when they saw him a week ago. And I think both of those things are true.
I agree.
Okay. Now, looking at William Contreras and Willy Adames, Brandon, I'm going to come to that comment in a second. It's going to be a really good transition. Looking at William Contreras and Willy Adames, they combined for 17 total bases. They had 7 total hits. All 3 of Contreras' hits were for extra bases. The Braves combined for 10. The entire Braves team had 10 total bases. Contreras and Adames themselves had 17.
Oh, my.
Willy Adames had 10 on his own.
Yep. Yeah, we got to bring up his hustle single that he had when we were up 9-0. That just proves you right there that that's a guy that you want in your clubhouse. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, and his price is going up. Hopefully the hometown discount is still a thing.
Right.
Okay, and Brandon brought up the last thing that I want to talk about here. So Brandon brought up that this was a big-time start for Colin Ray. It absolutely, absolutely was. And he said they didn't really use any bullpen pitchers versus the Braves using 4. So, 1, that is something that can benefit the Brewers tonight and tomorrow morning because the game starts at 11:20 tomorrow.
Yeah.
That is something that can benefit the Brewers. They made the Braves have to use a bunch of their bullpen pitchers. Now, the next thing with this, I think the Brewers did use a bullpen pitcher last night.
Joe Ross.
They skipped Joe Ross, who originally would have been scheduled to start last night, but because they had an off day, they skipped Joe Ross so he didn't have to face the Braves again like he did last Tuesday. The Braves used Bryce Elder against the Brewers again. Obviously, the Brewers adjusted. But looking at this, they skipped Joe Ross to not have him pitch against the Braves again. But if you look from 5 days from now, that's Saturday. The other pitcher that made a start last night, not for Milwaukee, but for Nashville, was DL Hall. So you look at Tobias Myers, who was pulled early from his start on Sunday, early in our opinion. 5 days from then would be Friday, even though that's only 4 games off. That's still 5 days off. So they skip Joe Ross, have the off day. 5 days from last night would be Saturday. I think DL Hall is starting on Saturday for the Milwaukee Brewers, not for the Nashville Sounds.
Do you put DL Hall and Ross together?
You could. You could. You could piggyback those two. You could piggyback DL Hall with Bryce Wilson, too.
I mean, Joe Ross had the top 5 pitch speeds, velocities in the game last night between the Braves and the Brewers. So he can obviously pump it up there and be a flamethrower if you need him to go along with DL Hall, who does have good stuff. Good. Yep. He has good velocity and he has a really good slider. But
yep.
I think that would be a good pairing.
What?
That'd be a good pairing, those two together.
Totally. I could totally see that. So DL Hall pitched 4 innings last night. They had him doing some extra rehab appearances in Nashville to stretch him out in case he was going to be needed to make starts. And I think that's where they're going with this, is having DL Hall be the starter. And you could. Brandon said he'll be a weapon out of the bullpen, him and Hall. You totally could pair those two together and be like, okay, can we get 7 innings from these two combined? You get 4 from Hall and 3 from Ross, and you turn it over to Hudson and Williams, or McGill and Williams, or Hudson and McGill. Like, you have options there. If you're winning by a bunch, you can do Peguero and Payamps and be good. You can feel good with Milner and Koenig. Once the Brewers are getting healthy in the bullpen, I think they're going to be in a much better situation than they've been in the last week.
The entire year, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, with Devin Williams healthy now, seemed like pretty much right after that, Hudson and McGill went to the injured list, but it does sound like both of those two are going to be facing the minimum number of days.
Yeah, it sounds like Hudson can be back tomorrow. He's eligible tomorrow, and then McGill's eligible against the Dodgers when we face the Dodgers.
Yeah, and that's what we're coming to next. Is we have 2 more against the Braves, and then they come back home, 3 versus Cincinnati over the weekend, and then the first 2 of a 4-game series at home against the Dodgers. And that'll be a huge series because, as Jake and I have discussed, we posted this on the page. It got a really positive reaction, which I'm happy for. Mm-hmm. The Brewers are 6 games above the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. They are, right now, I believe, 2.5 games behind the Dodgers for the 2nd seed in the National League.
Yep.
As Milwaukee Brewers fans, we should be looking up, not down. We should be looking at who we can chase, not who is, quote-unquote, chasing us, because the Cardinals really aren't close enough to be chasing us yet.
Yep.
The Brewers are 4-6 in their last 10. The Cardinals are 5-5 in their last 10. They're not, like, hunting us down or anything like that. Like, there needs to be a focus shift there. We are closer to chasing the Dodgers than the Cardinals are to chasing the Brewers. That's where the focus should be, where the race is tighter.
Yeah, I mean, we also face the Phillies coming up here, and we're only 3.5 behind the Phillies. And that series is at home as well. That's obviously later, but I mean, we face the Phillies, before the season ends, and we're only 3.5 behind them. So I'm just saying, man. Just saying.
Yeah, I strongly agree with you. We should be looking up, not down.
I don't know why you would look down, anyways. There's all these
fear. It's what it is. There's no other way to say it. It's fear. People are looking down in fear of, oh my God, what if the Brewers lose the division? Instead of, oh my God, what if we catch the Dodgers or the Phillies?
You want to know what, man? So I'm gonna ad lib here real quick. I had a discussion with my son last night because we had to go to equipment pickup last night. He had to grab his helmet and his shoulder pads for 6th grade tackle football, and he's talking about, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. I'm like, okay, go do it. he's like, but what if I suck? What if I'm bad? I'm like, let me tell you something. You know all those players you look up on YouTube? Those Tyreek Hills, the Barry Sanders. I made him watch Barry Sanders. I was like, dude, you're like Barry Sanders. All these players that you look up, I'm going to tell you right now, when they put their damn helmet on, there's not 1 second, not one thought that they thought, what if I'm bad today? You know what they thought of? I'm gonna go catch for 300 yards today. I'm gonna have 4 touchdowns today. I'm gonna break 15 ankles today. They thought positive things.
Yep.
And this could go into the mindset as a fan. You can't be looking behind you thinking like, oh, well, if we go 4-6 again and they go 6-4, they're gonna gain 2 games on us. You can't think like that. What if the Brewers go on a 10-game win streak and they go 4-6 again? Then what? I'll tell you what, we might be the number 1 seed in the National League if we go 10-0.
Okay, Brandon said 4-2 for the week. They have 7 games, Brandon. If the Brewers go 5-2 in those 7, and if we look at that 4 games of the Dodgers series, if the Brewers can take 3 or 4 from the Dodgers at home and they can make up 2 games there, and the Dodgers lost to the Phillies last night, like the Phillies and Dodgers are playing each other, so it's hard to gain on both of them because they're playing each other. Mm-hmm. But, looking at these last 2 Atlanta, if the Brewers can split the last 2, win the series against Cincinnati, and be 4-2 in a stretch, and then take 3 or 4 from the Dodgers, and you're looking at 7-3 in the next 10.
Yeah,
that puts the Brewers in a really great place. And if you're the Dodgers, you got to be sweating. And Brandon said it, they take the 2 seed if they win 3 versus the Dodgers, especially if they have a good series against Cincinnati before that, and if they can take at least one of the next 2 against the Braves again.
Yeah,
Brewers will be in a really good spot. Not that they aren't already, but just to Jake, to your thoughts here that you were just talking about with Aiden, like, just ask, what feels better? Does it feel better to look down at the team 6 games away, being like, oh my God, what if they catch us? Or does it feel better to look at the team that's above us by 2.5 games and go, oh my God, what if we catch them?
I mean, it's really important to be the 2 seed as well, because I believe the 3rd division winner plays the other wild card series, right?
Yep. You get a bye. Top 2 seeds get a bye.
Yeah. So to get a bye, man, and a team, you want to talk about a team that needs a bye, that needs a couple extra days off. It is the Brewers. It's not the Dodgers. Like,
they have injuries too, but they have a lot more making up for it.
Yeah. There's some stuff going on the Dodgers. I'm just gonna say we're not gonna talk anything bad about Freddie Freeman. He's going through some crazy stuff right now.
I love Freddie Freeman. I love
Freddie Freeman. I just seen people like talking about his batting average and stuff. It's like, dude, the stuff that he's going through with his kid, like, you can kindly shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
That is actually a good question about Mookie being back.
I think so. I think Mookie will be available during that series. I can't say I know that he's going to play a lot because he's going to be like just coming back.
Yeah.
But I think he is going to be back. James said if you look up at the sky instead of looking down at the ground, you have a higher chance of rising. Absolutely. Hold your head high instead of looking at your feet. Do the same for the Brewers in the standings, and let's catch the Dodgers and the Phillies. Let's catch them.
Yeah.
Let's make the Dodgers and Phillies fans worry about where the Brewers are at instead of the Brewers fans worrying about where the Cardinals and the Pirates are at.
I like that. We don't need to worry about the Pirates, dude. The Pirates are also 4-6 in their last 10 for people who don't know.
And not to mention that the Brewers have the biggest division leads in all of baseball.
Yep. They'll be okay.
The AL East is separated by a half game. The AL Central is separated by 4. The AL West, the top 2 teams are tied, and the 3rd team is 5.5 back.
Wow.
The NL East is separated by 6.5. Okay, so I just lied just now. There's a half game because the Brewers beat the Braves last night. So after last night when the Phillies won and the Braves lost, then that became the biggest lead by a half a game. The Brewers have a 6-game lead in the NL Central, and the NL West is 4 games from the Dodgers above the Diamondbacks and the Padres.
It's only 4 games?
Both of them. Because the Diamondbacks and the Padres are both 8-2 in their last 10, and the Dodgers are 4-6.
Dodgers better be careful, man. They might fuck around and be 3rd in their division.
The Dodgers are what the Brewers fans think are happening.
That's fair.
Like, we are not being chased down like the other teams are. Yes, the Brewers lost some winnable games this weekend, but we're talking about them being healthy in the next handful of days here.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunity for the Brewers to quickly turn this around.
Agreed.
All right, starts tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Saturday, got this coming up. We got to give this out before this because we will not be here next Wednesday because we are going to be here Saturday first. So you can see us on Saturday. Saturday, we are doing a full watch party like we will have on our Patreon, but we're doing it on Facebook and YouTube for free for everybody. This is going to be a full, preview of what you'll be able to see if you subscribe to us on Patreon. It's going to be the full pregame. You're going to have Simon Bryant, Jake, and myself all in our professional-looking studio. We try to make it look good, make it look like a full studio production. You're going to have all four of us talking about things in a pregame show. We will be live together during the entire game, and then we'll have a brief post-game show. That is what our main Patreon perk is those watch parties. We're going to have another one for Packers-Broncos, and then we have the Badgers season opener against Western Michigan on Friday, August 30th. So those are the two paid ones, but we're doing a free one this Saturday so people can see what it's going to be like for Packers games, and we are very, very excited for it. So tune in for that on Saturday, and then we will see you again next Wednesday. So, Jake, I will see you Friday and Saturday. And thanks, everybody.
2 days, buddy.